Dynasty Warriors has been one of my favorite gaming franchises for most of my life. My uncles owned Dynasty Warriors 3 on a PS2, and we would hop on split screen co-op and mess around over and over and over and over again. Some of my fondest, most cherished memories are just hanging out with my uncles and playing the various games with them. I don't see them much these days, but the memories will always be with me. Don't worry, they're not dead or anything. They're perfectly healthy. It's just, we grew up and life happens and I just don't see them much. Safe to say, the Dynasty Warriors franchise will always hold a special place in my heart. Dynasty Warriors 9 released all the way back on February 8, 2018, 7 years ago, and it almost killed the franchise. This game was an absolute abomination. Horrible gameplay, atrocious voice acting, a boring, empty, pointless open world. The game was so poorly received that the series went into hibernation. The Warriors franchise ever since has focused on successful anime and Nintendo spin-offs. Although I do love the spin-off games, Gundam Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, Pirate Warriors, etc. And I'm still hoping that we get a Kirby Warriors game. I think it has a lot of potential. Imagine being able to eat different enemies on the fly and copy their movesets. That would be sick. The thought of Dynasty Warriors potentially being dead crushed me, which is why I am beyond happy that Dynasty Warriors Origins was not only successful and well received, it is genuinely a really good game, one of the best in the franchise. But let me be clear, I certainly don't think it's perfect. That being said, let's talk about Dynasty Warriors Origins. With the power of modern technology, Dynasty Warriors is finally able to do something it's been trying to do ever since the very beginning. Well, okay, technically since the second game, because the original DW was a fighting game. Fun fact, in case you didn't know, having these absolutely massive army battles, 1 versus 1,000, has never felt so overwhelming and grandiose before, and I love it. Look at this nonsense, bro. A sea of allied and enemy armies brutally struggling for victory. Zhang Jiao's creating giant tornadoes and summoning lightning from the heavens themselves. Meanwhile, I'm over here getting my ass beat by a bunch of no-name soldiers and powerful generals. The final battle against Dong Zhuo has some awe-inspiring scale. The glorious castle, the humongous stairs, the massive army, the flaming catapults. I do not know how to even explain how happy this makes me. When I would play these games as a kid with my uncles, this is what I was imagining in my head. These glorious wars where we would emerge victorious after a hard-brought battle. Look at this absolute nonsense, bro. A sea of enemies and allies participating in the world's greatest gangbang. A dance of steel, a constant downpour of flaming arrows, horses marching to the song of death, a bloodbath like no other. And these bodies aren't just for show. If you're not careful, you will easily get overwhelmed. Look at this, bro. They're jumping me. Get off me, please. I need help. Please, I'm too young and beautiful to die. They're kicking my ass. Hey, want to see something crazy? 1,000 kills. I used the strongest version of my ultimate and got 1,000 kills, bro. That's how many enemies can be at screen at one moment. Now, the fights are not always like this. You're not always fighting 1,000 enemies. This only happens during the massive army versus army battles that not every stage has. But bro, this stuff is so goddamn cool. I remember when I was playing these games as a kid with my uncles, this is the stuff that I would imagine in my head. These crazy wars, bro. And I can finally truly experience it without having to just use my imagination. It's so much fun. A really cool feature is the large tactics. These are special attacks your or enemy army will try to use to deal some devastating damage. Order a rain of flaming arrows to burn the earth asunder. Have the generals attack with all of their might at once, creating this massive shockwave. Have a platoon of horse riders trample the opposition. Because of how powerful they are, you need to defend your army while they prepare to unleash its power, or try your hardest to stop the enemy officers from destroying you in one fell swoop. This adds to the illusion of a strategic back and forth between armies. Sadly, however, you yourself cannot order a large tactic. It is completely scripted, which is disappointing, but I still really like the mechanic. Although these massive army battles are great, having all of these enemies on screen aren't a lock to them. In this clip, I am in a small base, and as you can see, I am in the middle of what can only be referred to as a big orgy. Within 10 seconds, I got a total of 500 KOs. Wild. This game is almost always throwing enemies at you. There are some small scale battles here and there, mostly in short side quest battles or short repeatable battles meant to help grind experience. But in the main story, you are usually participating in some massive war with a handful of exceptions. Not only did Origins perfect the sheer scale of 1 versus 1000 combat, it also has a shockingly good combat system. The Warriors franchise has always had a reputation of being a mindless button masher requiring zero skill, and that's not entirely incorrect. You can button mash and win in most of the games, Dynasty or otherwise, but there has always been more depth than meets the eye. However, it varies from game to game, so for the sake of this video, let's stick to the Dynasty series. Usually, not every character plays the exact same. Each has a unique ultimate and exclusive skill. Different weapons have different playstyles and combos, and Dynasty Warriors 7 introduced the ability to switch between 2 weapons in the middle of combat, which introduced more combo potential. And Dynasty Warriors 8 gave each character 3 ultimates. Origins simultaneously added and removed depth. Although blocking has always been a feature, counters have not. Origins gave us the ability to counter most attacks by blocking at the correct time, not only negating damage, but stunning and damaging the enemy. The animation, the impact, it feels damn good.
Let's end this. Can't believe this.
Elite soldiers, generals, and bosses all have a breakable shield gauge. The shield gauge was added at some point in the past, I forget which game introduced it. The constant dodging, countering, shield breaking, and finishing attacks feels euphoric. Like always, combat is not super deep, but we do have a couple of different options. Basic light combo, basic strong combo, light strong combos by pressing the buttons in different orders, a dodge attack, a special R1 attack, and an air attack. You can also equip 4 different skills at one time. Gonna be honest, most of them basically do the same thing. Big sweeping hit in front of you, charge forward attack, temporary powered up state. Visually they do look different, but mechanically most of them do the same thing with a handful of exceptions. I like the skills, but I wish there were more variety with different effects. Most are exclusive to a specific weapon, but some are universal and can be used with any weapon, which is probably why so many of them do the same thing. That way every weapon has some kind of charge forward, every weapon has some sort of sweep in front of them, you know, that kind of thing. The variety in combat comes from the 9 different weapons, which all have a distinct playstyle with distinct combos, skills, and gimmicks. The sword and spear options are fairly basic, not offering anything super interesting from a gameplay standpoint, but have good attacks that will get the job done. The gauntlet has 2 different stances that you can enter at any time. Each stance has 2 different attacks for a total of 4 unique options. The hoop blades are my personal favorite. When you use a strong attack, you will launch the hoops. They float for a couple of seconds, damaging any fool in its path. Then after a couple of seconds, they float back to you. But if you press the strong button again at the right time, you'll do a special rebound attack. What I love is that you can have multiple hoops floating at a time, So if you set it up properly, you can do a devastating dance of steel and death. While I think individually the weapons are fun and engaging, disappointingly some of them play extremely similar. For example, the staff and dual axes both center around doing a continuous flow attack string. The only difference is that the staff will infinitely flow, meanwhile the axes will stop after a couple of swings and perform one final powerful blast. The fact that this game only has 9 different weapon types and some of them are still borderline clones is crazy. Dynasty Warriors has a long controversial history of clone movesets and limited weapon options. Some people like clones, meanwhile others don't. Personally, I am of the belief that the games should not have clone weapons if they are going to have a limited amount of weapon options. However, when it comes to games like Dynasty Warriors 8, which has almost 100 different weapons, similar/clone weapons are fine. Personally, I prefer the Dynasty Warriors 8 approach of having an absurd amount of options because it helps keep the game fun in the long run by having a vast variety of different playstyles to mess around with, even if some of them are similar. Like I said, Dynasty Warriors was never known for its complex combat. In my opinion, unless the franchise plans on doing a massive overhaul to its combat, making it more deep and complex, similar to, let's say, Devil May Cry, the more the merrier. And that is my main problem with the combat. While I like it and I think the core loop of countering, dodging, and guard breaking is super fun and rewarding, due to the limited amount of weapon options and some of them being similar, the game struggles to keep my attention in the long run. Also, I wish the game had more fantastical weapons like Zhuge Liang's fan, Zhang He's claws, and Xiahou Ban's insane jet spear thing. I know not everyone likes the fantasy aspect of the series, but I love it. Remember the grand tactics I mentioned at the beginning of the video? Well, there's actually a version that you, the player, have access to, a much weaker version simply called tactics. These function on a cooldown and resource system. The more powerful the tactic, the longer the cooldown. It can be as short as 30 seconds or as long as 7 minutes if my math is correct. You also need to have a certain amount of guards. These are units that follow you around but don't actually do anything. They are purely a resource tied to the tactics system. You can only have 3 tactics equipped at a time, and they are essentially a special skill that you can use every now and then. The guard system is actually something from the PS2 era of games, but in those games it worked very differently. Guards were actual units that would follow you around and fight alongside you in combat. You could even train them and level them up, and they had unique names as well. They were essentially actual characters. Sadly, they didn't have unique designs like the actual playable characters, but it was really cool to have your own personal squad just follow you around. Sadly, they removed this system ever since the PS3 era, but it seems like they finally decided to bring back some version of it. Honestly, if they wanted to bring back the system, I would have preferred if they just kept the original guards from the PS3 era. I just think it's more interesting. I do like the tactics though, they're fun to use and add a nice extra layer of strategy. Hopefully in the next game they combine both guard systems into one. That way we can have actual units that follow us around and help us in combat, but then they also have unique skills that we can use in the middle of combat on a cooldown system. That would add a massive extra layer of depth to the combat.
The castle has already fallen. Surrender at once.
Never. I shall fight to my last breath.
You would dishonor yourself out of stubborn pride, breaking your vow to your sworn brothers that you would die together, defying your duty to protect that which Liu Bei entrusted to you. Would your honor truly allow that?
The greatest strength of Origins is its story and especially character writing. Because of how massive the character roster traditionally are for the Warriors games, characters tend to be very one note. Origins, however, focuses on a much smaller cast. Because of this, it's able to delve deeper into this wonderful cast of warriors. The two best examples of this are Zhang Jiao and Dong Zhuo. In most games, they are throwaway joke characters, but in Origins, they are fully fleshed out characters with wants and desires. We see the beginning of the Yellow Turbans and how Zhang Jiao's beautiful dream of a happy and united China was slowly corrupted. Also, for some reason, he is drop dead gorgeous. Seriously, how did this old, dusted, encrusted grandpa turn into this beautiful angel? Not gonna lie, I would probably join the Yellow Turbans as well, because when your leader is this hot, why would you not? Sadly, he's only in the first chapter, so we don't spend that much time with him. Dong Zhuo, on the other hand, gets crazy exploration. He's always been just that crazy, super evil fat guy, but in Origins, he is a super smart military leader, trying his damnedest to make his dreams of conquest a reality. The final conversation we had with him genuinely made him one of my favorite characters in the game.
Even without your consent, I have ways of making use of you. Still, it's precisely because of that attitude that you have value. You shall be a wind that traverses Liang province, submitting to no one and making the presence of the strong known. That wind carries with it the life I desire. It has been a true pleasure. Go now, move through the land, under your own freedom.
In general, I love watching all of the different characters interact with each other. Guan Yu finding solace by sparring with Zhang Liao and Xu Huang. All of the three sworn brothers scenes are phenomenal. The Sun family dealing with the tragedy of Sun Jian's death. Lu Bu trying to kill Liu Bei in his dying moments. Oh, bro, that was epic as hell. I loved it. All of it is peak. However, there are two big problems with the story. The first is the voice acting. It's somehow simultaneously good and bad. The main issue is the bizarre lip syncing. For some reason, the actors are forced to follow the lip movement of a different language rather than having unique animations for the English voices. Because of this, characters are constantly stopping in the middle of their sentences. This, obviously, makes cutscenes really awkward. Dynasty Warriors 9 had a similar problem, but that game also had atrocious voice acting. Luckily, Origins had good acting. Some actors are definitely better than others, but in my opinion, no one was bad. I really hope the next game, whether it be Dynasty Warriors 10, Origins 2, or some other spin-off, I hope they fix the lip syncing issue. Also, bring back the actors from Dynasty Warriors 8. They were perfect. The second problem is the silent protagonist Ziluan. He and all of the other Guardian of Peace characters are completely original to this game, and I hate them. Okay, hate is a strong word. I am annoyed by them. Like I said, I love watching all of the Dynasty characters interact with each other, so every time that the characters are talking to Ziluan, I can't help but think, man, I really wish Zhang He was talking to Xiahou Dun right now. Bro, imagine that one cutscene where Lu Bu is pouring his heart out, talking about how he feels happy because he thinks he finally found a warrior that can truly challenge him in the battlefield. Instead of talking to Ziluan, this silent protagonist that has no connection to anything, instead, he's talking to Diao Chan. Bro, oh my god, that would be so good! For argument's sake, let's say instead of talking about Ziluan, Lu Bu is referring to Guan Yu. He feels like Guan Yu is the warrior that can truly challenge him, and he's pouring his heart out to Diao Chan. That would be a great way to develop and expand upon that relationship, making Lu Bu feel like a person, you know, like an actual human being with wants and desires and emotions. Bro, that would be so good! But no, Instead, Lu Bu is pouring his heart out to Ziluan, this guy who doesn't even say anything. He doesn't talk. He's just some dude. Also, hearing everybody say Guardian of Peace every 5 seconds gets really annoying really fast. I did not care for the actual Ziluan story during the first 3 chapters. Characters were just talking in circles or in vague platitudes the whole time. It was going nowhere. Seriously, looking back, we learned nothing of importance. It wasn't until chapter 4 that it finally started going somewhere, and it was kinda interesting, but by that point I just did not care anymore, to be honest. In the end, the Ziluan story was fine, but I would prefer if it was just not in the game. I would prefer if Dynasty Warriors Origin was just a game that heavily focuses on the story, the narrative of the early era of the 3 kingdoms. I think that would be great because we usually don't spend that much time in the early days of the 3 kingdoms, and I think Origins in general does do a good job of expanding upon that, but we do waste a lot of time because of the Ziluan Guardian of Peace nonsense. Imagine what the origin story could have been like if we just took all of the time and development spent on the Ziluan story and just applied it to the actual 3 Kingdoms story. They could have expanded upon Zhang Jiao's story even more. Don't get me wrong, I like what they did with him in Origins, but they could have gone even further. I think they did a great job with Dong Zhuo, so they don't really need to mess with him. But what about like Yuan Shao? Weirdly enough, we don't actually spend that much time with him. Not as much as you'd think we would have anyways. Also, there's a bunch of side characters that they could have expanded upon even more. The obvious candidate being Zhao Yun, the poster boy of the entire franchise. So, yeah. Anyways, I really like Dynasty Warriors Origins. Amazing presentation, phenomenal character interactions and exploration, and a fun gameplay loop. But it wasn't perfect. Eventually, when they make Dynasty Warriors 10, I really hope they keep all of the things that I liked about this game and bring back the massive roster of playable characters, each with their own signature weapons. 100 characters and weapons, we can do it! And hey, if you enjoyed this video, consider checking out my Shadow Generations review. It's pretty good if I do say so myself. Also, it got like 0 views, so make me feel better by go watching it. Feel free to share your own thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to more directly support me, become a channel member for just $5 a month. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.